Welcome back. We've journeyed through the specific challenges protesters face in autocratic regimes, the iron fist of repression and loyalty, and the subtler, absorptive mechanisms at play in democracies. Today, we tackle a force that cuts across all regime types, fundamentally reshaping the landscape of contention: technology. From the Arab Springs Twitter revolutions, a label now viewed with considerable skepticism, to the encrypted coordination in Hong Kong, digital tools have undeniably changed how people mobilize, communicate, and challenge power. But here's the twist. The same technologies that connect protesters also offer regimes unprecedented tools for surveillance, censorship, disinformation, and control. It's a digital double-edged sword. Today, we unpack this complex relationship, exploring the digital mobilization versus repression dialectic, the rise of algorithmic censorship, and the ongoing debate about the true efficacy of digital activism. Let's log in. It's tempting to view technology through simple lenses. Either it's the great liberator destined to empower the masses, or it's the ultimate tool of dystopian control. The reality, as scholars like Tufekci argue, is far more nuanced. Technology is best understood as contested terrain. Digital platforms offer incredible affordances. They make certain actions easier, like rapidly mobilizing large numbers or disseminating information across borders. Protest movements have skillfully exploited these affordances. But these same platforms and infrastructures create massive new vulnerabilities. They generate vast amounts of data perfect for state surveillance. Their centralized nature makes them choke points for censorship or shutdowns. They can be weaponized for spreading disinformation and sowing division. This is the essence of digital authoritarianism: regimes actively leveraging technology not just to react to dissent, but to proactively monitor, manage, and manipulate their populations. Recent work by the Digital Society Project has actually quantified this trend, documenting how digital repression has intensified globally since 2016, with autocracies learning from each other's technological control strategies. The central question then becomes, who is winning this digital arms race? Are movements innovating faster than states are adapting their control mechanisms? And crucially, is this even a fair fight given the resource disparities? Let's break down this dialectic: the constant push and pull between digital tools for mobilization and digital tools for repression. On one hand, the advantages for movements seem obvious: incredible speed and scale in organizing, the ability to build networks outside state control, and unprecedented global visibility for their cause. Think about how quickly protests could mushroom during the Arab Spring, seemingly out of nowhere, coordinated via Facebook or Twitter. Citizens filming police brutality on their phones, surveillance, also became a powerful tool. But the state holds powerful cards. Every connection, every post, every location check-in creates data points for surveillance. Regimes can monitor social media chatter, use facial recognition to identify protesters, and map out activist networks. They can pull the plug, shutting down the internet entirely, blocking specific platforms, or launching cyber attacks against movement infrastructure. And they've become adept at manipulation, spreading rumors, using fake accounts to sow discord, and flooding channels with noise. What's particularly concerning is the rise of predictive policing technologies, where machine learning analyzes patterns from past protests to help authorities anticipate and preemptively disrupt future mobilizations. This shifts the advantage dramatically toward states. The Hong Kong protests in 2019 and 2020 were a masterclass in this dynamic. Protesters used encrypted messaging, airdrop for local file sharing, and fluid leaderless tactics, while the state countered with intense digital surveillance, doxing, and information warfare. Ultimately, the implementation of the national security law criminalized many digital resistance tactics, highlighting the state's ultimate trump card: legal frameworks backed by coercive power. This case also highlights the awkward role of tech platforms. caught between state demands and user expectations, often making decisions that impact millions with limited transparency or accountability. State control online is also getting smarter, or perhaps just sneakier. It's moving beyond simply blocking access to websites, which is often obvious and can provoke anger. The newer methods are more insidious. Think algorithmic filtering. Content the regime dislikes don't get outright banned, it just disappears. It gets downranked in your social media feed, buried in search results, effectively becoming invisible without any official censorship notice. States can also selectively throttle or slow down specific services, making them frustratingly unusable. Automated systems constantly scan for sensitive keywords, triggering takedowns or alerting authorities. Technology like deep packet inspection now allows authorities to examine the actual content of internet communications, not just metadata about who's talking to whom. This creates vastly more sophisticated surveillance capabilities that can be deployed at scale. The cumulative effect: a chilling atmosphere that encourages preemptive self-censorship. People avoid discussing sensitive topics online, not necessarily because they know they're being watched, but because they fear they might be, or worry their posts simply won't be seen. Organizations like Freedom House track these trends globally, and their reports paint a worrying picture of increasingly sophisticated digital authoritarianism. Their 2023 Net Freedom Report marked the 13th consecutive year of global decline in internet freedom. Russia's trajectory, culminating in its severe digital crackdown following the invasion of Ukraine, blocking major platforms, criminalizing dissent, pushing state narratives, exemplifies this multi-layered strategy of asserting control over the national information space. What's particularly notable is how Russia's sovereign internet approach has become something of a blueprint, with countries like Iran, Turkey, and others adopting similar technical and legal frameworks to assert state control over their digital ecosystems. So, given the risks and the state's countermeasures, is activism shifting away from street protest towards purely digital forms? Certainly, digital tools enable a whole range of activities beyond organizing marches. Think online petitions that gather millions of signatures, sophisticated fundraising campaigns, consumer boycotts organized via hashtags, or coordinating complex legal challenges and policy research entirely online. These forms of digital activism connect local struggles to global networks, potentially amplifying pressure. We're also seeing a growing emphasis on activists developing their own digital infrastructure, alternative messaging platforms, decentralized networks, and security tools specifically designed to resist state surveillance and control. Projects like Tor, Signal, and various blockchain applications represent attempts to build technological resistance directly into the infrastructure. But this raises the perennial debate about efficacy. Does clicking like or signing an online petition actually achieve anything? Or is it just slacktivism, low-effort actions that substitute for meaningful engagement? The consensus among most researchers is that digital tools are powerful, but usually most effective when they complement offline action. The physical presence of bodies on the street still carries unique weight. It demonstrates willingness to take risks, disrupts normalcy in a tangible way, and is harder for authorities to simply ignore or algorithmically suppress. Digital tools amplify and coordinate, but they rarely seem to replace the need for offline mobilization entirely. The successful challenges to Indonesia's controversial omnibus law involved both massive street protests and intensive online organizing and legal advocacy, a blended strategy. Similarly, Thailand's democratic movement during COVID-19 restrictions developed creative digital tactics to maintain momentum when physical gatherings were limited, but still returned to street demonstrations when possible. These cases suggest movements are developing more sophisticated understandings of when and how to deploy digital versus physical tactics based on specific contexts and objectives. All right, let's try to untangle the wires of today's discussion on technology and protest. We frame technology not as a simple force for good or evil, but as contested terrain, where movements and states constantly jockey for advantage, building on Tufekci's work. We dissected the Mobilization Repression Dialectic, seeing how tools that enable rapid organizing also facilitate state surveillance and disruption, using Hong Kong as a stark example. We then looked beyond simple blocking to the rise of more sophisticated digital control mechanisms like algorithmic filtering and throttling, with Russia as a case study. Finally, we touched upon alternative digital strategies and the ongoing, complex debate about the efficacy of online versus offline action, examining cases from Indonesia and Thailand. What are the main takeaways? First, the relationship between technology and protest is deeply ambivalent, empowering and endangering simultaneously. Second, states, particularly autocratic ones, are not technologically naive. They are actively learning and deploying increasingly sophisticated digital tools for repression and control, often with significant resource advantages over activists. Third, while digital activism opens new avenues, its ability to achieve fundamental political change likely still depends heavily on its connection to tangible, offline mobilization and risk-taking. And fourth, this is a rapidly evolving field. The strategies and counter-strategies we see today will likely be outdated tomorrow. It's a high-stakes technological arms race, but one where the playing field appears increasingly tilted in favor of states, with resources to deploy advanced surveillance and control technologies. This brings us nearly to the end of our journey. We've looked at autocracies, democracies, and now the overarching impact of technology. What does it all add up to? Next time, in our concluding episode 6, we'll attempt to synthesize the key findings from across the series. We'll revisit our main theoretical frameworks, critically re-examine influential ideas like Chenoweth's 3.5% rule in light of modern challenges, acknowledge the limitations of our analysis, and reflect on the broader implications for understanding why mass demonstrations struggle to overthrow regimes in our current era. Until then, this is Kaede, signing off.